Random tables. A DM's best friend. Until they're not the DM's best friend. Hello and welcome. It's Tuesday, the 8th of March, 2022. God, I don't even know what day it is anymore. It's about 61 degrees and sunny. Looks like spring might be here in Ventura, California. And sports, of course, it's March Madness. Time to fill out your college basketball brackets. Let's go UCLA or University of Vegas. Those are usually the two I vote for. I don't know why University of Vegas. Nor do you care. Okay, so it's Mega Dungeon March, the second week of Mega Dungeon March. So we're once again talking about the topic of Mega Dungeons. And as we've defined the many differences between a normal dungeon and a Mega Dungeon, size, repeatability, and the randomness. In a dungeon, when a room's empty, chances you're never going back, so who cares? In a mega dungeon, when a room's emptied out, there's a chance it could be refilled. There's a chance you could always run into random encounters. I mean, technically, you could build an entire dungeon just on random encounters. See the map. And of course, the grandfather of all random tables, of which this map is based upon, is the random tables from the DM's Guide, the big, classic DM's Guide that had the Efreet on the cover, in the back, all the appendixes, and the great random dungeon generating tables, which is probably the father of all random D&D tables. Random tables are great until they're not. They're a really great tool for you as a DM, especially if you're repopulating a mega dungeon or just need random monsters, random things, random encounters, random effects, whatever. They definitely give more life to dungeons and mega dungeons, especially mega dungeons. There's a larger chance, that something's just going to be wandering around and see an empty room and decide, I'm going to move in here. The trouble is that random tables can become a crutch, especially if you're, constantly looking at them. It's constantly also sort of showing that you're not really prepared, and sort of it's separating that suspension of disbelief if every 5 minutes the DM is looking down and rolling dice and flipping through his random tables. So there's a point where they become a crutch. Thankfully, today, a lot of the random tables have been converted to apps and online generators, so it's a lot quicker for you as a DM to just use the random generator app like Chartopia, or find a web page that has the random tables that you like and just do that really quickly with your phone. Definitely takes away the stacks of paper you'd have if you're randomly generating normally. And which is, they're a great tool, but you don't want to depend upon them too much, because sometimes random is random. And if you want to see some great examples of early nonsensical random, you just look at some of the early published modules, B1, B2, B3. There's a couple other early ones that just have some ridiculous random tables. One of my favorite examples of random encounters that makes no sense is I think it's from Keep on the Borderlands. I'm not sure, but there's a 15 by 15 room with 35 bugbears in it. Okay, so just math-wise, if one bugbear is taking up each hex, that's 15 hexes by bugbears who are all standing straight, occupying their hex, not moving at all, okay, in order to fill the 15 by 15 hex. Where are the other 20 bugbears? Because 15 bugbears take up the 15 hexes. So does that mean the remaining 20 are standing on the shoulders of the, you got 15, and then another row of 15 standing on the shoulders of the first 15, and then you've got the remaining 5 standing on the shoulders of the second layer of 15. Maybe they're laying down and they're packed like cords of wood, and when you open the door, they somehow pop up. Of course, 35 bugbears in a 15 by 15 room, even if they're laying down on the ground, you would have stacks on top of each other. And see, it doesn't work, but that's a randomly generated table. So, random tables are great until they're not. But in regards to our topic, mega dungeons, you do need some way to repopulate, and you do need some way to just occasionally throw stuff that may or may not make sense. Players go in, they empty out a room, they leave, maybe they come back, and maybe a wandering monster has decided, I'm moving into this room. So they are a really good tool for you. You just don't want to get them too dependent on them, and you don't want to be too random, because then it just starts feeling random. The Caves of Chaos are a perfect example of just, okay, there's some orcs, and now there's some goblins. Now I don't understand. Now there's one, So you could make your random table sort of fit the theme of the area, So if let's use Borrow Maze as an example. Borrow Maze, the underlying theme is City of Dead. So random tables are going to be built around that theme, City of the Dead, which means you're going to be running into a lot of variations of undead, a lot of variations of creatures that would develop ecologies based upon undead, ghouls, various slime monsters who would feed off the decomposing bodies and individuals who profit off of the undead and a City of the Dead, like grave robbers, cultists, stuff like that. Just fellow adventurers who are down there exploring this vast underground City of the Dead. So you could still have random encounters, but the random encounters make sense. So now we've got, City of the Dead. We've got our table of random encounters to sort of fill those empty rooms. There's some, official rule that 30% of all rooms in a mega dungeon should be empty, just to sort of give that feeling of space and sort of just nonsensical purpose. Empty rooms don't serve a purpose, but they're empty simply because the building's so big and, nobody's found a use for this room, or maybe this room used to be something and now whoever it was just killed or left. So you've got an empty room, but there's always that chance to roll a random encounter and have it be in the room. But you want it to make sense. So if your theme is clowns on dinosaurs, then you want all the random encounters to sort of be clown-related, dinosaur-related things that might evolve in an ecology based upon clowns riding dinosaurs. And generally, it can be nonsensical, but there should be some level of sense, because you don't want to get that, and there's plenty of mega dungeons and dungeons that have this, and I've run into more than a few of them where, like, one room's got an underwater encounter in it, and the next room's got a normal encounter in it, and then you got an empty room with a trap, and then another room with another normal encounter, but the normal encounter has nothing to do with the previous normal encounter, and you're like, well, why aren't these guys arguing over the empty space, or why aren't they working together? And it still doesn't explain the shark in the last room. And I've been through that dungeon. I mean, I remember going through a mega dungeon that a friend made a couple years ago that basically was obviously randomly generated, and there were just encounters where, like, we'd run into a shark, and the next one would be like, where's the water coming from? Who's feeding that shark? How is the shark surviving in this chamber? Why are none of the other chambers getting affected by this large amount of water? Suddenly there's a bunch of goblins. Where did they come from? Are they feeding the shark? So a mega dungeon doesn't have to make sense, but it does. And a random table is going to be your best friend until it's not. You don't want to get too dependent upon the random tables to where you're constantly looking at them, constantly referring to them during the game, because that takes away from that feeling of, oh, the DM knows what he's doing, and, oh, now he's just rolling random shit. So that sort of breaks my suspension of disbelief and my involvement, because I see you're just rolling random shit. So yeah, we could run into something that's too weak. We could run into something that's we can handle. We could run into something that's way too powerful. But if the randoms encounters fit the theme and you don't become too dependent upon it, especially now, thankfully, most of the stuff you're going to need is online, so you can do it a lot quicker, then it's sort of just, it's part of the flow, and it's part of the magic of a mega dungeon, just that constant sensation of change and evolution and empty spaces being filled and other spaces being emptied. And this sort of tells the story. This room used to be occupied by X. Then it was abandoned. Then Y moved in. So now we have, the layers of the history of this section of rooms. And then Y was killed. And then the players show up. So we've got 2 layers of history. And then the players leave. And then something else moves in. So now we've got 4 layers of history in this room. And that's just cool. That's one of the cool things about Mega Dungeons is the history, the repeatability, the wandering monsters, the random encounters, the nonsense. Why are there singing skulls? I don't know. Do I have to have an explanation? No, it's a Mega Dungeon. And the layers of story, and every room, even randomly generated, tells some story. We have a story going on based upon what we first ran into, and then what moved in afterwards, and then just so on. So yes, random tables are going to be a highlight of your Mega Dungeon. Just you don't want to get too dependent upon them. And if you're using random tables, then have the random table sort of fit the theme of the section of the Mega Dungeon you are rolling for. And you can have more than one table because you're going to have more than one sections. And maybe there's, in the giant mushroom section, you're going to have way different wandering monsters than you are going to have in the City of the Dead section. And you're going to have way different wandering monsters in that section than you might have in the Why Is There a Shark in This Room section. Anyways, that's just some more ramblings about Mega Dungeon March and Mega Dungeons and the care and feeding of Mega Dungeons. Next, we'll continue this through this week. And the next week, we're moving on to superheroes for mega power. I hope you appreciate this content. If you do, let me know. If you have any ideas on Mega Dungeons or a favorite Mega Dungeon you want to talk about, comment down below. Or support me so I can go out and build myself a Mega Dungeon. Till then, subscribe and get out of my Mega Dungeon, you damn kids. See ya.